This is quantum mechanics for a beginner level course. We begin with Stern-Gerlach experiments. It was performed in 1922 by Otto Stern and Walter Gerlach. Stern-Gerlach experiments demonstrate that measurements on quantum particles they are not always as certain as we might expect. The act of observing a quantum particle it affects its measurable properties in a way that's foreign to our classical expectations. Stone-Gerlach experiment demonstrates many basic principles of quantum mechanics. We'll discuss different experimental setups and we'll analyze the results. There are six experimental setups that we can study under Stone-Gerlach experiments. This experiment tells us how quantum mechanics works in principle, that is the postulates, and in practice, that is the matrix mechanics and Dirac notation. So let's understand the experimental setup of the experiment. So there are three major parts. Okay, first there is an oven, there is an inhomogeneous magnetic field, and then there is a detector. This oven produces a beam of neutral atoms. Stern and Gerlach used silver atoms as the neutral atoms in their experiment. Then this region of space, this has inhomogeneous magnetic field. What do we mean by inhomogeneous magnetic field? That is the direction of magnetic field, yes, it's in one particular direction, but the magnitude is not the same everywhere. So as you move up in the z direction, the magnitude changes. So whenever you have a sharp peak, the magnetic field in that region is stronger. As you can see, the magnetic field lines are close. Here magnetic field lines are far apart, which means that magnetic field strength is weaker here, stronger here. So as you move in the z direction, you see that there is change in the magnitude of magnetic field. So we say that the magnetic field gradient is set up in the z direction here. Okay. And then we have a detector for atoms. This detector is nothing but a screen wherein you see the atoms after they pass through the inhomogeneous magnetic field, how they are split, that we detect at the detector. Okay. So now this Stern-Gerlach experiment actually it challenges our classical expectations. To know that, let us first see what are the classical expectations of such an experiment. So what we see here is there are a bunch of neutral atoms being passed through inhomogeneous magnetic field. Now if they're deflected, so any sort of interaction with the magnetic field is possible if these atoms here possess something called as magnetic moment. We know about magnetic moment. So the potential energy of such an interaction can be written as E equal to minus mu dot B. We know that force is minus gradient of potential. So what we can write force as gradient of mu dot B. Now here, since the magnetic field gradient is set up in the z direction, what we need here is the z component of force. So the z component of force is written as this gradient includes all the three directions. We write only the z direction dou by dou z of mu dot B, which can be written as mu z dou bz by dou z. Here we are assuming that mu z, there is no change. You apply product rule here, mu z dou bz by dou z plus bz dou mu z by dou z. So you see that we assume that there is no change in the magnetic moment along the z direction. Okay. So now this force acts perpendicular to the direction of motion. Okay, the direction of motion was in the y direction, right? And the magnetic field gradient was set up in the z direction. So this force acts perpendicular to the direction of motion and it deflects the beam in proportion to the component of magnetic field in the direction of magnetic field gradient. What do we mean is Fc here is directly proportional to mu z. So if there is greater component of magnetic moment in the z direction, greater will be the deflection. That is what we understand from here. Okay. Now what we understand here is atom consists of charged particles. Okay. These charged particles are in motion. So they generate current loops. What we know is a loop of area A and current I produces a magnetic moment mu equals to IA. That we know, right? So now if there is a charge q traveling at a speed v in a circle of radius r, so I is q by t, time is distance upon speed, distance is 2 pi r by v, and this area is pi r square. So after a bit of algebra, what you see here is q r v by 2, q by 2m, and we can write this as L, where what is L? L is mrv. We identify mrv as this orbital angular momentum of the particle. Okay, so now just like how Earth revolves around the sun and rotates on its own axis, we can understand about the electron. So what you have here is um, in a particle, we can understand that since it's revolving, we can say that there's something associated to it. We call it as orbital angular momentum. Then the spin along it its own axis, we call it something called as intrinsic angular momentum, which we call it as spin. Though in reality, these particles are not physical objects spinning on its own axis, but it helps us in understanding the theory, and the formula are very much similar for both the angular momentum. So if there is a relation between mu and L like this, we expect that there should be a similar relation for spin angular momentum, or that is as intrinsic angular momentum. The actual derivation of this formula requires an integral over all the charges, but we don't care about the details. All this detail is involved in this gyromagnetic ratio G, okay, which takes care of it. And then what we actually get is, instead of L, we get here is S, which is your intrinsic angular momentum or your spin. Okay, so now what we see is you have silver atoms. Silver atom has neutrons, protons and electrons. Here we have a mass in the denominator. Since neutrons and protons, they are massive particles, there is negligible contribution of these in the magnetic moment of the entire atom. So we neglect it, and what we consider is just mass of the electrons. What we care about is the electron now. So we write electronic configuration of silver. Now this core electrons, these all can be represented by a spherical symmetrical cloud of electrons. Okay, so what remains is just this 5s electron. So these electrons, the spherical symmetric cloud, it has no orbital angular momentum, no spin angular momentum. This 5s1 electron, s electrons don't have orbital angular momentum, they just have spin angular momentum. So this entire atom, this entire silver atom just has spin angular momentum due to this 5s1 electron. Okay, so now since we got the formula mu equal to G Q by 2m S, what we can write here is mu equal to minus G E 2me by S, 2me S. Okay, so now we also derived the formula of classical force. Fc is mu z dou bz by dou z. Now we write that formula here for this case. Now what we observe is this deflection that we are observing. So greater the force, greater the deflection. So this deflection in Stern-Gerlach experiment is a measure of component of spin along z direction. Yes, z direction is the direction of magnetic field gradient. We could have set up this magnetic field gradient in any arbitrary direction, but to begin with, we took the convention as to start in the z direction. Okay, so magnetic field gradient here is in the z direction. So now this formula will tell you how much force is acting on this particular atom, and depending on how much is its component of spin along z direction. Okay, point to be noted is here we are not talking about the entire spin angular momentum, we are talking only about its component in the z direction. Okay, now uh, we see that there won't be just one atom, there are a number of atoms coming out of the oven. We assume that, which is a fair assumption, that their magnitude of spin is mod s. Okay, so the magnitude of intrinsic angular momentum for all these atoms is mod s. Then what we can write here, the z component of spin is as mod z cos theta, where theta will be your angle between z direction and whatever arbitrary direction that your spin is pointing in. Okay, right. So now what we see is, since here oven has a thermal environment, we expect that there is a random distribution of this spin directions. Okay, there is no reason to expect that it should all point in the same direction. So we expect all possible values of theta. What does it imply? It implies that SC, which was mod S cos theta. Now your theta can vary it can take any possible value. So cos theta can vary between -1 and 1. So what you expect SC is a continuous distribution between minus of mod Z and to plus mod Z. Okay. So if you're passing a bunch of silver atoms through this inhomogeneous magnetic field, you should get a continuous spread on the screen from minus S to plus S. Okay. But what is that we're actually observing in the experiment? Stern-Gerlach observed that instead of getting this continuous spread, we get two deflections, one in the up direction and another in the lower direction. So this result of Stern-Gerlach experiment not only challenges our classical expectations, but it gives us valuable insights into how quantum mechanics works. Here, the very first remarkable observation that we make is, this is an evidence of quantization of electrons' spin angular momentum along any axis. What does that mean? First of all, quantization means that anything can take up only particular values, not any arbitrary value. So here quantization is in the sense that Hg can take only plus h bar by 2 or minus h bar by 2, as we see in this slide. So this magnitude of this deflection, if you find out the magnitude, it comes out to be plus minus h bar by 2. Plus indicates up, minus indicates down. Okay, so here up and down need not necessarily be up and down in the direction, but we means that we get two particular deflections, and one of them we can always label as up and the other as down. The factor here that comes as 1 by 2, it makes us call this system of particles, the system is a spin half system. Had it been 1 here, we'd call it a spin 1 system. Had it been 3 by 2 here, we'll call it a spin 3 by 2 system. So here, this bunch of silver atoms, this is a spin half system, and that will be the first system we're going to study in quantum mechanics, and which helps us in setting the base of quantum mechanics. Okay, so like I said, this is an evidence of quantization of electron spin angular momentum along an axis, and this is at odds with our classical expectation. Okay, so to sum up, it's that what we are measuring here is the spin component along z axis. It can take up two particular values, which is plus h bar by 2 and minus h bar by 2. It cannot take any arbitrary value. It is not a continuous spread from minus s to plus s. It has very specific values, and which are just two values, which is plus and minus h bar by 2. Okay, so now we understand that the challenge one is what you expect classically is not observed in quantum mechanics. So you check your classical intuitions before entering quantum mechanics, right? And this spin, we'll study now the Stern-Gallagher experiments, placing different placing this magnetic field gradient along different directions, and we'll study how these deflections happen and how does an act of observation change what we know already, or how the system forgets about what is already measured, or in what cases does it remember what it has already measured. So we'll see that in the next video.